Wake up your morning in a brand new way with the positive people, places, events, and things in and around your neighborhood and around the world. No matter where you live, your mornings are about to get better. It's the refreshing way to start your day. No doom or gloom, just bright sunshine no matter what the weather. Metro Magazine with Bonnie McDaniel. Inspiring, informative, intelligent, Ion. Positively the best way to start your morning. Good morning and welcome to Metro Magazine. We have a very familiar face with us this morning, someone who's I'd like to consider a friend to Metro Magazine. And she's back to talk about an exciting project that's coming up on the 17th, actually just in a few days, on Capitol Hill. But we're not going to talk about that too much. I want you to really listen, sit back and listen to the wonderful conversation that I'm sure we're going to have with Maimah Karmo. Maimah, welcome to Metro Magazine.
Hi, Bonnie.
I know this is not a welcome, it's a revisit actually, and it's been a while. And you know, over the course of, I would say, the last couple of years, I guess it's been about 2 years since you were here.
Yeah.
We've had some wonderful dinners and wonderful lunches, and there's a side of you that I suspect a lot of people don't know, but it's one of the most endearing things that I find about you. And so I'm going to put you on the spot a lot today because I want people to get to know this wonderful human being behind Tiger Lily. So now if we go back, it's been, I guess you just celebrated your 8th anniversary, or is it number 9?
9.
Of being cancer-free. And you've done a heck of a lot. I mean, if we look at the, you do a 5K run. Of course, you have the Empower Ball every year. You have something that I absolutely love is your daughter does this pajama clam. And I promise I'm going to come to one of them soon. I know I keep promising. But you know, when I want to go to sleep, I get evil. So I'm like,
you do?
Yeah, I do. So I'm like, no, they do not want to see me in that state of mind. So I haven't come yet, but I promise maybe this year. And it comes up in the fall, is it?
It'll be in October this year.
Okay, okay. And you bring your really cute pajamas. And I can wear makeup, right?
You have to wear makeup.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, you got to get all dolled up.
Okay, okay. So,
and heels.
Oh my gosh.
So I wear like 3.5-inch stilettos. And my satin Victoria's Secret pajamas. And my hair is all, glammed up in makeup. And I'm like, let's go.
Oh, so we do this glam. Really is a glam.
I mean, little girls aren't really, but they wear like, we give them, boas and things like that. But the moms are all like, we're like bling bling.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
All right, I think I might.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, heels, pajamas, sexy, empowered. I mean, who doesn't want to do that?
Yeah, yeah. And there's nothing like getting a bunch of really nice
fun.
Women together.
Pillows everywhere. You can lay on the ground. You can dance. You can have drinks. We do Zumba dancing. We do yoga. But we have a dance party. And it's all your girlfriends. It's just fun. And we have different vendors talking about different ways to detox your body, especially in breast health awareness. Just things that, shopping, people have clothes, jewelry, so you have fun, you shop.
So I get to put on stilettos, nice.
And pajamas.
Pajamas, and I get to shop.
Yes, and drink. Well, not the kids, just the adults.
Okay, so.
Within moderation.
Oh my gosh.
I'm not saying I will be in moderation, but it's fun. It's just fun.
Yeah. Oh God. So if I recall correctly, your daughter was the one who came up with the idea for Pajama Glam? Okay.
So, Noelle has been watching me. When I got diagnosed, I made a promise to myself to be myself with her and to let her know what breast cancer was, what I was going through. I wouldn't make it this big scary thing.
Right.
But something that happens to people, it happens. And it's like having a bad day. It's crappy, but it happened to me. And here's what our plan is to get through this. And and so she just saw me kind of getting out there, first beginning Tiger Lily as a blog. And then getting out there and speaking for the first time, being terrified, and then realizing people are needing to get the information.
Right, right.
And then stepping into myself, because this wasn't like my natural, I'm very naturally shy. So it wasn't my first inclination to be a friend.
Shy?
Trust me. Yeah. I mean, one-on-one I'm not, but in a big crowd of people looking at me, that's not, I'm more of a nerd, bookish, that's kind of me, my natural state. So, but amongst friends, I know. So it wasn't easy for me to do that. But I figured my fears, my need to help these women is bigger than my fear of not knowing what I don't know. I mean, I'm talking about my story, but I'm not a researcher or a doctor, and I don't know what other people may know who's been around for a longer time. But I knew that the passion I had was so powerful and so big, and then I knew I had, you know, God behind me and beside me and in front of me, and He said, "Do this thing."
Right.
And so, you know, I'll watch me go through this transformation, and she'd be with me when I'm going to a speaking engagement, and I'd be sitting in the car sweating, like, oh my God, I can't do this, and I'm so scared, and what if I don't say the right things, and what if I forget or stutter? And she would look at me, and she's like, "You'll do a good job, Mama."
Yeah.
And I go up there, and then once I step on the stage, and, you know, I'll always say to God, like, you know, I'm here to speak speak through me. Then I get up and I just start talking, and then next thing it's over. So she learned at a young age to speak her truth and to speak who she was and to show up as whatever you are, you know?
Right, right.
And so...
And if I can interrupt you for a second, that's something that's very powerful. Talking about speaking your truth and showing up and being who you are.
And don't compare to anybody else.
Yeah.
You are you.
Yeah.
There's a reason why God made you and nobody else just like you.
And that's a very, I think, important message for especially a lot of women to get, because I find especially young women, young girls who are trying to emulate other people who are famous and consequently lose themselves. You do have to, and I love the fact that you're teaching her that it's okay to be who you are.
Well, I tell her, don't be like me. Like, I'm still figuring this whole thing out. You know, like, don't be like me. Be like you. And so when she first began coming to me with the idea of pajama glam, I said, no, I don't want you to do what I'm doing. Because I'm very firm about her being her own individual.
Sure.
So I said, well, I think it's because she wants to emulate me because of she sees all that I'm doing and she feels...
And girls do that, you know,
and
with their
I
moms
do.
to a certain point. Yeah.
I love that, but I wanted to be her choice, what she does in her life. If she wants to be a rocket scientist or be a gypsy, I'll be like, okay, here's a check and go do your thing. Okay, you know, do you, but just do you.
Okay, you know, I'm going to remind you of that. And if Noe is watching this,
she's a gypsy.
And a few years from now,
if
you're going to come to me like,
that,
Bonnie, Noe decided to be a gypsy. I'm going to remind you that you said it was okay.
I know. But I'm actually a gypsy kind of person at heart. I'm like a flower child. You know, I'm very crazy and I don't have any boundaries. So it's like, you know, I think part of the thing is too, like, I'm very much of I don't fit into a box. And people don't know all of me because there's so many parts of me that only if you're with me all the time or around me a lot, like, you've gotten to know me more and you're like, oh my God, this is so fun. But there's so many parts of me. And so,
and you know, it's interesting people say that. I think one of the reasons we get along very well is the fact that there are many layers to Bonnie McDaniel. And
yes, there are.
And you just...
Speaking of which, our last conversation.
Yeah. And so it's interesting, I think, to people who make assumptions about people like us. They decide who you are, and then if you decide, and I make that determination, if you decide to let a person on the other side and see some of the layers, they're always, I think, pleasantly surprised by what's there.
Yeah, and so, you know, when I say she can be a gypsy, I wish I could be a gypsy. I wish I didn't have sometimes the trappings of responsibility where I could just, you know, have gone and traveled to different countries and worn slippers and gone backpacking. But like, I'm
not going to let my daughter watch this because this
she wants to go backpacking.
Is a gypsy at heart.
But
she really is.
She's who God.
I know, and I've kind of just like thrown it up and say, you know, whatever.
Yeah. And actually, I was gypsy like for some time. My parents would be like, so my father one time he the doorbell rang and then he thought I was sleeping. He goes to the door and my girlfriend's like, oh, is Maimah awake? And he goes, no, she's sleeping. And she goes, oh, I'm here to take her to Dallas for her flight to Atlanta. And she goes, what? She's sleeping. And I'm like, hi, Daddy. I'm leaving. Mommy,
how old were you?
I was about 22. My parents were making me crazy. So I just packed a bag, booked a ticket, called my girlfriend and said, I'm coming to be with you in Atlanta for a couple of months. And called the other friend and said, can you give me a ride, please? And my dad was like, you're going to Atlanta for what? And I said, yeah, I love you guys, but you're making me nuts right now. I got to go. I got to bounce. And he just stood there and my girlfriend's like, bye, Mr. Karmo. And he's like, but May, wake up, she's leaving. And she's like, what's going on? It's like 7 in the morning. And I get in the car and I left for Atlanta. I was there for like 3 months.
Oh my gosh.
And I did it different times. I just wanted to be free and go and my parents wanted to trust me that I would make my own decisions and I would be okay.
Yeah.
And when they would worry about me, I said, but I don't get it. You told me that there's a God that's before me, there is behind me, that's around me. You told me to have faith. So what are you afraid of? You know, what are you afraid of? That I'm going to live?
Yeah.
Well, if something happens to me, I would die living. Like what? My whole purpose is to live my life. on my own terms.
I think one of the things you're going to recognize, being a mom of someone whose daughter is older than Noe, is that it's not so much, the fear doesn't have to do with you as much as it has to do with other people that you're possibly encounter.
I get it. I mean, she's on a bus now going to school, and the bus doesn't have any seatbelt. So it's not about her getting in the bus and being safe. It's the fact that somebody could just be drunk and, you know, God forbid, or if she could go to school and there could be some crazy person with a gun. I mean, so I know that. She's my heart, like your daughter. So I know that, but do I choose to? So here's the thing that cancer gave me, the gift, is that when I look at my life, how much time do I want to spend, look and say I spend, if you're afraid of something today and tomorrow and day after, like that time adds up. So if you look at how much time you spend being afraid over your lifespan, would you regret having had that fear? Or would you say, damn, I wasted all that time being afraid of something that didn't happen?
Right.
So I choose to not be that way.
Yeah, and it's a wonderful, wonderful way to be. And I've had to teach myself, especially as it has to do with my children. Anything else, I'm pretty fearless. I walk into and I'm like, you know what? Let me see what happens. As a matter of fact, there's a certain level of excitement of the unknown when it comes to other things. And I'm trying to teach myself that as it has to do with my children.
It's difficult because Noelle's been getting on the bus this year, and the first day of school, I walked her to the bus stop. And then she was like, you know, Mommy, will you come with me tomorrow? And the next day, I think I walked with her, and she was afraid. But I kept saying to her, I said, Noelle, I said, do you know how incredible it is to have angels all around you? Like, wow. I said, you can't see them, but you can feel them. Like, close your eyes, and they're everywhere. You don't need me to be with you. Like, I'm here in your heart. So, but imagine me in your heart. Imagine that there's these tall angels everywhere. What do you need me to be with you for? Just go. And so she went, and she kept looking back at me and looking back, and then she kept looking back, and then she couldn't see me, and then I couldn't see her, and then I sent her a text saying, you got this, girl, and then she went. And then the funny thing is, the next day, so I made her, she gets ready in the morning, I made her breakfast, I did her hair, and she got her backpack on, and she's walking, getting ready to walk, and I come out with her, and I'm walking, and she goes, oh, Mommy, I got this. Wow. And I said, oh.
You're teaching her independence.
Well, guess what happened inside? I go, oh, you do? And I said, can I walk you halfway? She goes, no, you're a big girl. You got this. You'll be fine. And I felt myself about to cry with pride. But with also, like, you know, there was that fear there. But my pride was more than my fear. And so, like I told her, I had to imagine that day myself. Like, she goes, go in the house and close the door and watch from the window. But my friends can't see you coming to the bus stop because I want you to come, but I'll be in Paris. So I had to tell her I had to practice what I was preaching to her. Right. So every morning when she walks off, like this morning she walked off, I envision angels all around her, and her feet aren't even on the ground. That's how amazing, that's how they got her. And then she's going, and I'm like, okay, she's good. And and she gets on the bus, and I don't have any control until she comes back in my house. Right. But
you know
happy.
What? Ultimately, we don't have any control anyway.
It's an illusion. I mean, like getting cancer or any disease or anything like that. That's one thing it taught me again too. Like, I don't have any control. No, so all really the fear and worry and doubt and anxiety is just like, they're just noise. That keep us from being happy.
Exactly. Very, very much distractions. I'm loving this conversation, by the way, but we're going to take a quick break.
We should have drinks next time.
I know, right? But you know, when I have little kids watching in the morning, we don't want them to think that this is how we do things.
Mimosas, maybe?
Exactly. So we're going to take a quick break and come back, and I'm loving this conversation. I want to ask you a little bit more about, especially a continuation of a word I want to ask you as it has to do with raising daughters. We're going to come right back in just a moment with more Metro Magazine and Maimah Karmo.
When you throw away money on wasted electricity, you're throwing away everything you could have bought with it. Saving energy saves you money.
Oh, sweetheart. Gonna give you a hand?
No thanks, Dad. I got it.
Okay. I'm gonna go fix the lamp in your room.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of children in foster care who will take you just as you are.
If you're just joining us, we're here this morning with Maimah Karmo, the founder of Tiger Lily Foundation. And Maimah, when we went to break, we were talking about your daughter and some of the wonderful lessons that you're imparting to her along the journey. And one of the things that kind of stood out with me, you were talking about the idea of letting go and of fear, as it has to do with parenting, but also as it has to do with us living a fearless life. So if you were to think about Noelle, because I mentioned too that I'm a mom, and it's really hard because it's not that you don't trust them, it's the people that are around them that you don't trust so much. So if you had to talk to a mom, and your daughter is 11?
12.
12. Oh my gosh, she's a tween for
She's
sure.
a tween.
If you had to give one piece of advice to a mom who has a daughter, because daughters are very different than sons, what piece of advice would you give them as it has to do with raising a daughter?
You know, for me and Noelle, like, I consider myself a compassionate teacher. So the way I parent her is that I'm her guide. So I'm guiding her, but I'm also seeing her through eyes of compassion. Like, I love this little person. I love her. Yeah. And I'm not here to be her boss. I always tell her, I'm not your boss. I won't tell you what to do. I'll tell you, here are the options. And so I've always raised her. I want her to have free will, make her own choices. But I want to be able to have an environment where she can really emerge. Right. Because when they're babies, they're just kind of like these little blobs, and then their personalities come out. But when you really love somebody, truly love them, you give them a space within which they can grow and show up. It's like watering a plant. So my job is to water her as a person.
I love that.
And so I feed her with different information. I feed her with me growing in myself. I feed her with love, with teaching. I mean, there's sometimes when I mess up and I'll send her a text saying, like yesterday we had a little bit of a tiff, and I said, you know, she left mad at me, and I said, send her a text. I said, I'm really sorry I said that. I know I didn't mean it the way it came out, but I'm sorry I was wrong how I verbalized what I was feeling, and please forgive me, and have a beautiful, blessed day. I love you. I'll see you later. God bless you. Yeah. So it's like being what you're talking about. Some people say, well, don't tell your kids sorry. Well, why not? I mean,
you know what? Because you really do. Your children learn not by what you say, but by what you do.
They learn humility. They learn compassion. They learn that oh, mommy's human. So when they make a mistake, they can, because they're human. Yeah. I mean, I screw up all the time, or I make choices where I'm like, should I have done that? And she just laughs. She goes, you're good. Or when she has a mistake she makes, she can come home and say, Mommy, I did this in school. I told this person something, and I shouldn't have said that. And I'm like, girl, you're good. Forget about that. You want some chips? You know? But
you want some chips?
You want some chips? You want to get some ice cream? And it's 10 o'clock at night. Let's go get some ice cream in our pajamas. Yeah. And we do that, you know? Yeah. And I'm like, she's like, why shouldn't I? I'm like, dude, forget about that. Let's put the music up loud and dance. Like, it's not an issue. So the way you treat yourself is how they treat themselves, and the way you treat them, it's just all, it's lessons. Exactly. So I just teach her to enjoy her life. Don't be hard on herself. Have fun. Learn to have quiet time. It's just certain things, but mostly it's about self-value, because life can be challenging. But the more self-compassion you have, and the more you can honor yourself, the less you're going to judge other people, the less you judge yourself, the less anxiety, the less fear, because you know at the end of the day, it's all good. That's why it's all good.
It's so interesting talking about valuing yourself. So one of my clients said something to me when I first started to work with her. And it's interesting how people see you, perceive you. And I did not know her. And she said something to me that I will forever treasure all the days of my life, because more important than anything is that I have integrity. But not integrity that you're trying to display to other people, but integrity for yourself. And she said to me, she says, you know, the reason why I wanted you to work with me is that you have self-integrity. No one has to tell you you're wrong, or that you are making an error, or whatever. She said, it's very obvious to me, and perhaps to other people around you, that you check yourself, that you don't need someone else to check you. And that, to me, is
powerful.
Important. Yeah, and no one had ever said that to me before. I'm very, very, I don't want to say hard on myself, but I set my expectations for myself in terms of how I see myself and conduct myself. but also how I treat and conduct myself with other people, because it's important, I think. And it sounds like you're teaching Noelle a lot of that value.
Well, you know, I do. I wouldn't say I try, because I do. So one of the things, so people always throw words around like being authentic and being in integrity. And so I look up things and I'm like, what does this word really mean?
Right.
So besides it meaning that you have, you know, your integrity, you have a character that exudes integrity. Integrity also means, like when you say a ship has integrity, it's sturdy.
Right.
It's strong.
Right.
It is fit. Its feet are on the ground, so to speak.
Exactly.
So having integrity means to me like my knowledge of myself. I study myself, you know, where I'm strong, where I may be weak, where I need to grow, where there are opportunities. So Noelle and I don't say words like, this is bad, or I got it. We say we have an opportunity or a challenge. We don't say things like weak or bad, or we try to change our use of positive words.
And integrity does not mean that you're trying to be a goody two shoes. That's the other thing
No,
that
it
people, a
means
lot of
that
misconception.
It means that you're trying to be solid in who you
Right,
are
exactly.
and know who you are. And that means knowing that you have to work on this part of yourself, or knowing
Right.
that I love myself like this. I'm feeling myself today, okay? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, and it's okay,
It's okay.
to do that. Yeah.
you want people that you love, I want to see other women who are powerful and strong and feeling good about themselves. And how you begin doing that is raising a strong, a girl who's comfortable in her own skin.
And you know, you bring up an interesting point, because we both mentor young women in different walks of life. And one of the things that people talk about a lot, especially, and I'm older than you are, but talking about the legacy, just a little bit, talking about the legacy and what I'd like to leave, not just for my children, but for the other women and other people that I'm graced to encounter over the course of my life. And it's not, it really is that self-value that I really want to impart, because if you value yourself, you can do anything. You can do it. You don't, you know, you don't take anything for granted when you value yourself, because you understand that, you know what, I came here to do something, not just for me, but for everybody that I touch over the course of my life. And that's important. So speak to that, because it seems to talk a lot about the work that you do and why you do it. Speak to that for a moment.
Well, before in line with answering your question, I think when you know yourself and you are yourself, you're blessing other people.
Right.
Because you're exuding the essence that you were put on this earth to be, right? And the true measure of a man's essence is when you leave the room or the space, the energy of what you've created permeates and is still there even when you're gone. People that are leaders who are no longer here, like who've been dead for years, their essence is still alive. You can almost feel them palpably in a room. So, you know, I think that's something that I want to do, and I want to see other young women have the confidence to do, because when you're younger, there's a sense of, I meet girls all the time when I'm speaking at events, and they say, oh, I'm not there yet. I'm like, no, you're where you need to be.
Exactly.
You're perfectly square where you are.
Exactly.
You're exactly where you need to be. Enjoy that moment. You don't get to be 12, 15, 16, you know, 25. So enjoy being there. Don't rush it.
You bring up an interesting point, because, sorry to interrupt you, but a lot of women who are mature, and I say mature, who are in their, you know, late 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, or whatever, it's always interesting to me, I'll say, when I see them try to be, you know, 20 or 30 when they're 50. It's like you're missing 50 if you're trying to be what you were or have already experienced.
Or didn't enjoy when you were there.
Right. So you
You
need
know?
to, because what will happen is if you're blessed to be 70, then you'll be looking to be 50, and you will never have experienced any of those decades and the blessings that they bring.
Right.
You know.
And more so than that, it's like be where you are. That's the
Right.
thing. That's why I talk about, you know, letting go of the anxieties and the fears and those things. If you're not where you are, you're going to always want to be someplace else, either the past or the future.
Right, right.
So the past is worrying and anxiety. The past is doubt or regret. The past is regret, and the future is anxiety.
Right.
Because you didn't choose to be where you are. And so that's one thing I try to emphasize with my daughter and with these young women, is be where you are. I also see a lot of young women who are mature, like you said, who are like, that young girl is doing this. This young girl is doing that. I mean, I don't want to be Nicki Minaj, but if she wants to go and do her thing, do your thing,
Let
girl.
her do her thing.
Do her thing. my daughter won't be doing that thing anywhere. She'll be in her nice pants. She won't be having a huge whatever or have it out there. But I mean, if somebody wants to be a certain way, that's their choice. That star isn't her role model.
And we don't get to decide.
Each person decides, you know, so each person decides who they want to be. You do you. Let her do herself. But everybody's evolving through what they feel is their truth. You know, don't make somebody your daughter's role model. So, you know, and don't point fingers at why is she doing that.
Right.
Kids are going to mimic her. No, I never mimicked that kind of behavior. It wasn't me. You know, so I think it's really important for people to really live in integrity with themselves.
Right.
And it's okay to, you know, make your own choices. And so I really like that. I talk to girls a lot about being where they are, knowing their truth, and loving yourself. And that means all of yourself, you know, your flaws and all.
You know, you spoke a couple of minutes ago about leaving your essence, you know, in a room or in a space.
Yeah, I didn't finish talking about that. Yeah.
And it's so funny, you reminded me. I remember when I was 12, 13 years old. My mother taught me one of the greatest lessons and I remember that. And it was done in such a subtle way. She was not a woman. I'm very plain when I speak. Not that my mother wasn't, but I'm just kind of get right to the point. She used to like to just have things that were totally unrelated to paint a picture, if you will, for me. And so I remember one day, I grew up in Florida, and she was putting on perfume, and it was spray. And she spritzed herself, and we were getting ready to go to church. I'll never forget this. And she says, "Come here." And so she spritzed me, and she goes, "Lift your frock," because down south they call your dress, you know, frock. She says, "Lift your frock," and she gave me this spray, and she says, and you do that so that when you leave the room, you will leave your fragrance. She says, but more importantly, that's the way you should live. It had nothing to do with the perfume. It had everything to do with the impression I was going to leave when I left the room. And I never forgot that. And wherever I am, wherever I speak, and no, there are times when I leave a bad impression because I'm like in my crazy zone. And you know, you leave and you're like, oh my God, what was I thinking? What was I doing? And of course you have the opportunity to go back and say you're sorry. But those are the opportunities, or the things that we get to try to teach our girls, I think, about what it means to leave your fragrance, if you will, your essence, it's when you leave a room.
Huge. I mean, there are two things. My father used to be a pain in the where he'd always tell me the importance of never leaving the house without looking immaculate. Yeah. So even if I was going to go run errands, he's like, "Did you fix your hair? You know, he's like, you're 20, you're 18 years old now. You need to put on something on your face, some lip gloss, and you know, your pants can be wrinkled, and put on some nice shoes. Don't be going out with sneakers on, and wear a purse and put your things in there with a handkerchief." And I'm like, I'm going to the freaking store, dude. You know,
we were raised a lot the same way. It's so funny.
And his mother, which his mother is called Rebecca, but her friends call her Lady. And she used to be the kind of woman that she had this room where you open this closet, and there was huge wooden closets, and there was one where she opened it and there was jewelry, dripping jewelry, all kinds of diamonds and rubies, and she would, you know, have us paint her toenails, and she would just sit there like this. And then she had this bra that was more like she had these, well, I know they were corsets now, but she would say, "Children, help me zip up my, button up my corset." And my brother and I would come behind her and help her get that stuff in there.
Oh my gosh, this is in Liberia?
Yeah, and she would get dressed, and she'd have a teeny waist, and she had posture like this, and she would just, and then she would put her perfume on. She said, "Put it behind your ears and on your neck, and then here, and then other places too." But she said her goal was that she taught me attention to detail, how important detail is.
Exactly. Because
she looked at every little, her cuff, her shoe, her smell, but she loved her friends. She noticed their face, their eyes, their smiles. And so I learned early on that people are really important, that you have to not just see them, but you see them.
Exactly. And then that's too funny you're saying this. You're going to freak out.
And it's how they see you. Like, and she took care of herself. And so, like, honestly, like, one of the things that even when I was in treatment, I get up in the morning, get dressed, fully made up, put on the wig, and I'd be like in 3-inch heels in treatment. People would be like, "Okay, this is not a fashion show in Paris. You're here for chemotherapy."
You want to hear something funny?
Tell me.
You know, I do the Women Are Talking.
Yeah.
And we have not had this conversation.
I was there last year.
Well, this year we're going to do, this is an off year. I call it an off year because we're not going to physically come together. However, and I'm just getting ready to announce this, and you have not heard this before. And I pray and I ask God, inspire me, tell me what we need to talk about this
Right.
year. And the name of the conference, you're not going to believe this, is I See You.
Really?
Yes.
That's so creepy. And I
That
mean,
is
in a good
too
way.
and I know.
That's amazing. This is what I mean about like
I believe
being connected with people.
But also connected to God, to higher power, because we think it's our original idea, and it never is. So when you said that, I got just like goosebumps all over. I'm like, I cannot believe this, because I've been asking God, what should have women talk about this year? And one of the things that the answer that came was, I see you. Because one of the things that I think women, and going back to our daughters, a lot of things, because of the fact that we are constantly moving, we're busy, we don't see the person that's next to us. Because when we see, we acknowledge, we have compassion for them. And it's so interesting that you said that, because I'm thinking, oh God, this is too crazy.
That's one of the things that I taught my daughter very early on. Because I remember telling her when I had breast cancer, and people were like, don't tell her. Like, I sat her down and I said, I want you to see me.
Yeah.
I want you to see who I really am.
Yeah, it's so important.
So I sat with her on the floor with my, and I sat down like this, and I sat her down and I said, look at me. And she was like, I went in the bathroom, took the wig off, and I came in, I said, look at me. And she was running around crying. I said, look at me. My mom said, why are you putting her through that? I said, I want her to see me as Maimah.
It's so
not just
important.
her mother, as a woman who's strong, weak, vulnerable, scared. And I said, Mommy, I don't care when I'm going to die, but before I go, she's going to see me. I'm going to see her. We all want to be seen.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And the reason why, like, you ask me, like, sometimes people ask me, how did your foundation grow so fast? Or why do people tell you things they wouldn't tell anybody else? Why would you and I have this relationship that somebody else might see you and think, Bonnie's whatever, but I see you. That's why, because I see people, and then let them see me as I'm in integrity with who I am. And they see me, I see them, and then what happens is something like love happens.
And you know what? I'm getting so overwhelmed now, because I got the name, but I didn't really get all of the essence of what that means. And I am so excited, first of all, that you're sitting here and that you are acknowledging something that really, it came from someplace else. This was not Bonnie's idea. It was through my prayer that God said, it needs to be, I see you.
People
because
want to be
women
seen.
They need to be, and people,
and men need to be seen too. You know what I mean? You and I discussed this. People, I love women having all these different forms, but men don't have the same forms. And I grew up with 4 brothers, and they've had different relationships, marriages, divorce. And one of the things that my brother told me after his divorce, he's like, I don't know if she saw me.
Yeah.
And he couldn't tell his boys that.
But you know what? I think the reason why women are unable to see men is because they don't see themselves.
But also men don't have the same kind of conversations we have. They don't sit down and discuss what we're talking about now. It's not manly. They sit down and scratch themselves and watch, have beer and punch in the arm. It's what they do. I watch them all the time. But one of my really good friends called me. He was texting me about a girl he was dating, and they're broken up, and he was like about to cuss her out, and he was mad at her. And I said, why are you mad at this girl? He goes, well, I wanted this from her, and she didn't tell me the truth, and so you're going to yell at her or break up and be mean to her? I said, what are you being to her? Are you being what you were asking her to be to you? I said, he's like, what do you mean? Well, I said, no, it's not about her. Right. What did you give to her? What are you showing her? The person that I know and love wouldn't treat a woman like that.
Wow.
I adore you. We've been friends for 10 years. He's the first person who told me I was beautiful without a wig on. Like you've been there for me. You love me. You love my daughter. You love what I do. Why would you call her and yell at her or be mean to her because you guys were... I said, when you were dating her, did she see you? Well, no, we were dating and I had to be cool. And I'm like, well, then she didn't love you because you didn't show her yourself.
Right.
So it happens with friendships, relationships. People often hide who they are. And they'll say, this person didn't like me. Well, did you show them yourself?
Right. And
are you giving them what you're asking them to give you?
Right.
And something I had to learn and love. We oftentimes say, well, we show up kind of, sort of, then we get scared. And then we're like, okay, this didn't work out. But when you get back, the person that you tell your friends that you are, when you call your girlfriend and say, well, this happened and da-da-da-da-da, and he didn't, are you telling the dude, listen, here's how I really feel. I'm in love with you. You hurt me. I want this from you. And what are you asking of him? So it's a really powerful thing for someone to want to be seen. But this guy, my friend, back to my point, I said to him, you have never let anyone really see you, any woman. So you show them a certain side of you that's tough and that's edgy and that's doesn't need anybody. So when a girl is dating you, and she's going to feel like after a while, like, God, this guy won't let me in. He doesn't love me when you could be in love with this girl. Maybe if she may not be the one for you, this person, but just tell her, like, I'm in love with you when you hurt me. And that's okay to be that way and walk away.
Right.
Teach her about compassion when you walk away. Teach her about, you know, about love, what love is. Love is sometimes vulnerable and it hurts, but you're going to open her heart. You're going to open your heart. And then you'll be open to the next person that comes into your life.
And you know, and the worst thing that can happen is just you've made this wonderful friendship.
Well, yeah.
I mean, what's bad about that, right?
I told him that. I said, well, you and I were friends. We kind of sort of dated a little bit, didn't work out. I'm like, you know, but we're best of friends now. And so if I had said to you, well, you're being whatever, you don't want it, you're not really serious or you're whatever, then we wouldn't be friends. But I just said, you know, we just had a conversation. And I'm like, you know, you got a lot going on. I do too. Let's just be friends. There was some kind of discomfort there for a while. And now you can call me and discuss something 10 years later.
Yeah, yeah.
And every single person, I will say, without exception, that I've ever been with, we are close friends. Some of us close talk more than others, but there's no need for, you know, unless the person's abusive or hurtful or whatever, there's no need for anger. There's a lesson to be learned there.
Yeah, and I want to end on that
about
note
what's
we need
next.
Yeah, and we're going to end just for a second and come back from break, and I want to talk a little bit more about this love thing. So we're going to come right back with more Metro Magazine and Maimah Karmo. Stay tuned.
Up to 40% of businesses never recover after experiencing a major disaster. Make a plan at ready.gov/business.
Maimah, when we went to break, we were talking about beginning to venture into the space of love. Let's talk about love for a minute and how a young woman or a young man learn the true definition of love. Let's talk about that for a moment.
So I would say, you know, like you talk about parenting a child, it starts there. You know, love is friendship. First of all, it's not just the passion.
Right.
I've learned that true love is friendship. When somebody sees you, when somebody wants to hold your hand and walk beside you, but it's also you being able to see them and having them see you, vulnerability. But as simple as something.
Stop for a second, because I hope it's okay for me to share this, and the person will remain nameless. But you said something to me, and when we were having one of our dinners, and you said we were talking about when you first met someone who was pretty special to you, and you said when he held your hand, he did this.
Right.
So let's demonstrate, because someone can hold your hand like this, or they can do this,
or they can do
this.
Right.
Where the fingers. There's a difference in a hand holding that lets you know this says I see you, I am into you,
I'm
versus
with you.
Oh, it's nice for us to be hanging out.
Right.
It's a difference in hand holding.
It is. So I'm all flustered now. So which one? I'm discussing Noel or the love thing?
No,
love.
Both of
or
them.
Both. So
they're both.
Yeah, they're both. I'll discuss both.
Because obviously you knew, because you said he did this.
Well, what he did was, I would tell you about the story. Then I'll tell you about my daughter and what she taught me about friendship.
Because the two of them are definitely
they're very linked. Well, she shows me how to love, though. That's the thing. She's one of my biggest teachers. Because she's one of my biggest teachers. But what he did was, you know, we met, and his first impression of me was, you know, oh, she's all, you know, coming with her Louis Vuitton bag, and she's going to be like a diva, and she has her hair done, and look at those lashes, and her this, that, and she's, you know, has all the,
right.
And he had judged me, and I saw him, and I was like, whatever, I'm here to speak at this thing. I'll be here for a week, and I want to help these women who are survivors, so I'm there for them, but I'm going to be stuck with this guy for the next, you know, week, taking me around. And, you know, he was the person that was supposed to be taking me to different, you know, speaking engagements and interviews. And so he seemed nice, but I'm like, you know, and then so we just began talking here and there and having conversations. And then he said something to me. He's like, does anybody really know that you're like this? And I was like, no, why? But he was looking at me in a way where within through 2 or 3 days, he saw me in the way that people that I've dated for years never really saw me. And then he asked me, he's like, why aren't you married? And I said, excuse me? He said, why? And I said, well, I want to marry my best friend and I haven't met him yet.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
he said,
I love that.
I said I could have been married multiple times to different people, but I will know when the person shows up. And and then so days later went by, and then one day we were we just were talking because we began to build this friendship that was just like, to me, was beautiful, and that's all it was. And then we were walking on the beach, and then we were walking, and he just put his hands through my hands without thinking. It wasn't like I saw him any kind of sense. And it just saw it as friendship, and we're talking, and I can enjoy this person's company. But he just, without thinking, put his fingers through mine, and I never felt like that before. It was like, without saying a word, we had made a pact. We had just, something happened. Wasn't sexual. It wasn't about, oh, I want to jump his bones or her bones. It was just like something happened. And then we were both like, what do we do with this? We didn't talk about it.
Wow.
And we sat on the beach, and,
and a lot
hours
of people
passed.
don't
And
recognize
that honestly was my very first time truly being like falling relentlessly, headlessly in love. But I was like, what is this? It wasn't about, oh my God, he's cute, or oh my God, he's it was more like a feeling of like someone seeing you and knowing your integrity, all of those things we discussed at one time without saying a word.
Wow. Wow.
He didn't care what I did, who I was, who I knew, how I looked. I'm sure he's glad I wasn't cute, but he just didn't. He saw me.
Cute is good. Yeah.
But he saw me, and it was powerful, because true love doesn't have to talk.
Exactly.
And when I left the engagement, I left thinking, I'm leaving my heart behind.
Wow.
But we hadn't done anything. I mean, it was just like it was just one of those things.
Just the hand holding. Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot has happened since that time, but yeah. And so, when I got back, one of the things that my daughter has taught me about love is like, so I came back and I was like, oh my God, I'm leaving this person I'm in love with, but it was a week. How do you love somebody in a week? And she and I were sitting down talking one time, and we were talking about something, and then she and one of her friends had a disagreement, and she was saying, well, I can't tell them how I feel. They may not like me anymore, or I'm gonna, or I love this person, and she might be mean if I tell her about what she did that I didn't like, or I'm showing myself too much. And I said, well, if someone loves you, you can show them who you are,
right?
And you'll figure out no problems insurmountable if you love somebody. And I said, just call her up and tell her how you feel, and you will work through it together. And it was so funny, as I was telling her the words, I thought, oh,
yeah,
because he was like, this is fine, we're not distance, time, whatever. And I'm like, no, distance, I didn't plan this, I have things to do, I know you for a week, it's impossible. And I was telling her that. But the thing is, true love is about friendship. And so you have to, and anytime I've met somebody who we didn't have that friendship, it just never works. Because after everything else goes away, to be able to have somebody just look at you and then seeing you, and you have that smile, and then hold your hand after any argument, after any misunderstanding, they love your essence. That's what it's about.
It's so funny. I was met up actually yesterday, had lunch with one of my daughter's college friends, and I love the fact that her friends
hang out with
make it important to me, to them, to come and see me, or to that's kind of special now that I think about it. But anyway, we were having lunch. He wanted me to meet his new wife, and so we were sitting there talking about dating and all of those kinds of things that you talk about with young folks. And so he said, your daughter hasn't found her father yet. And I said, what do you mean? She goes, she hasn't found her dad. He said, I've been around you and your husband. And he said, that's what I looked for when I was looking for Tina. I looked for that kind of relationship. And I was like, are you serious? I'm like, he gets on my nerves, all the things that happen. He goes, yeah. He says, but you could see that there was a level of respect and love and acknowledgement there, and I wanted that, and that's what your daughter wants. And I was like, wow, that's stuff that I think a lot of times, and I'm glad to hear that you're letting Noe see that, because in today's world, what you see a lot is he's hot, she's hot. You know, they make a nice couple.
They look good together.
They look good together. All of the things
or a
that,
power couple. I don't want to be a power couple. I don't want to be on Instagram or Facebook. I don't care. Like no one knew I dated for someone for. No one knows what I do. They don't have to know. It's special when you're ready to put it out there. But it's not about. People are more concerned with what people are seeing outside than where they are.
And I keep my husband pretty. It's that a couple of people have seen him, on Facebook, and I haven't posted it because. That's very private for me. But the people who have been fortunate, and I say fortunate enough to have met him, they're like, oh my gosh, he's such a cool dude. And he really is.
He is a wonderful man. And I'm not saying it's not fun to put out there who you're with. But I just think that there's something to be said for. So one of the things I loved was being pregnant with my daughter, carrying her, incubating her. And I feel that way for me, with my relationships. When I'm with somebody that I think this is something really, really special, I want to keep it sacred. I want to honor it, nurture it. I like that it can be just the two of you guys in this space. At some point, people are going to find out. And it's okay. You're not hiding anything, but it's just okay to be together. And I have to I'm having 2 pieces of toast and a glass of wine at,
that's the thing that disturbs me with Facebook or whatever.
It's okay to just be together. And I think that...
Because I know we get together all the time.
And no one's pulling their phone out.
Exactly. We're not taking pictures, sending out there, oh, we're at this place or that place.
It takes away from the moment when you're more concerned with putting where you are
and who you're
fixing
with.
The what you call it, filters and all that, and what you're doing. You spend 5 to 15 minutes doing that, and you're not really with a person.
And we'll hang out for 2 hours, 3 hours, or however long until somebody just like passes out.
You're like, I'm tired, I gotta go home. I'm like, one more glass of wine, Bonnie.
And no one ever, and because I'm there to spend time with you.
Exactly.
And it's not about other people.
Right, knowing or seeing or so back to your question, I think that with love is friendship. It's seeing the person. But one thing I've learned that's really powerful. So a friend of my daughter, again, they had a disagreement, and then she wasn't showing the person again how she felt, and I said, show her that if you talk to her. She says, if I talk to her, I might start crying. And I said, well, what's wrong with that?
Right.
And I said, I cry all the time. I cry when I'm making a speech. I cry on TV. I cry in my bedroom. You see me crying. She sees me crying every now and then when I have a bad day or I'm worried or stressed out or whatever. So I said, just show her who you are, because then she'll know you love her. She may be mad because she may think that she may not know the depth of how it made you feel. But if you talk to her, and as you're talking to her, because you love her so much and you're afraid and you're upset, you start crying, that's going to melt a part of her, and you guys can share something there and rebuild your relationship. And so again, a lot of times I'm talking to her, and as I'm giving her advice, I'm hearing myself talking and saying, oh yeah, about that.
Exactly.
I should try that too. And it's invaluable in relationships, with friendships, and with
especially when you're transparent. It really,
because everybody has walls up, and but you're asking people to be something that you're not willing to be of yourself. You're saying, give me your truth, give me your vulnerability, give me your honesty, give me who you are. But if you're hiding yourself, you're not giving what you're asking. I think if you just show up and say, I'm here, and you are vulnerable and you are open, just so many things could happen out of that. It's just beautiful and endless what could occur in your life.
We're having so much fun this morning. And I know when I told you an hour, you're thinking, oh, that's such a long time.
Are we almost there at the hour?
We're getting there. And I want to make sure that we have time to talk about this exciting event that's coming up in just a few days, next Wednesday. So we're going to take another quick break, have a little drink of water, and we're going to come back and you're going to talk about the
Hill Day.
Yes. Yes, so we'll be right back with more Metro Magazine and Maimah Karmo.
Up to 40% of businesses never recover after experiencing a major disaster. Make a plan at ready.gov/business.
Maimah, we have been having so much fun this morning, but
I
I know there's
know.
some business we need to take care of too, because you have this exciting event coming up on the Hill.
Yes.
And it's about empowerment. And, you know, we're going to have you come back here and there to talk about, because you're wonderful. You have some wonderful advice, I think.
Thanks, Bonnie.
Aside from the amazing work that you do for Tiger Lily, I think that there's a lot of wisdom that you can impart to a lot of our viewing audience. So I'm going to definitely have you come back again. So let's talk about what's happening on the Hill.
So next Wednesday is going to be an amazing day. You know, and it all goes back to, you know, you showing up, or me showing up and walking into something that I'm not sure what it is, but I know I need to be there.
Right.
So in 2009, I had the pleasure of meeting Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman-Schultz. I was literally laying in bed, and I got an invite to an event, and it was 8 in the morning in DC, and I live in Aldi. I mean, it's far from DC, and in traffic, it's impossible to get anywhere by 8 o'clock in the morning. But I saw her picture, and I read her bio, and I read about the event, and I just felt was compelled to be there. You know, when God's like saying to you, you need to go be someplace.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I can't go. I have to. Noelle's school doesn't open till 8 o'clock, and then I get her to school at 8 o'clock. Then I have to get to. I won't be there before it's over.
Right.
So I went to bed, but somehow I got up in the middle of the night, like 2 or 3 in the morning, at whatever time it was, and opened my computer just to kind of check emails, and the email's looking at me, and it's like, you have to be at this thing. Like God was like saying you have to go. So I got up early and got Noelle dressed, and she's like, I said, Noelle, I'm really sorry to wake you up, but you know, God spoke to me, and she goes, him again. Like, again, mommy, where we have to go? It's early, it's dark. Because I always say, Noelle, I'm sorry, but God gave me this thing. I have this feeling. She goes, oh my. So then I said, well, we have to go to school. And she goes, it's dark, I'm tired. And I said, but I have to be at this event. It's in DC, and I don't want to miss it. And she's like, mommy, really? I said, I'll buy you candy. I'll take you to Chuck E. Cheese, whatever. We got to go.
You're paying her off.
I bribe her. And so I took her to school, and the doors were closed. And I'm like, can you let me in? Can you take? They're like, we don't open until. And I'm like, please, I have to go, and I'll give you guys candy too, Chuck E. Cheese. And they just said, just give her to us. And so I got there, and I got there just in time. Debbie was speaking about being a mother. She has 3 children, twins, and then another child. And she lives and works in the District of Columbia, but her family's, her husband, everybody's in Florida.
Oh, wow.
She was talking
I did
about,
not know that about her.
She's talking about the sacrifice of pursuing her passion, giving back to the community, being what she believes that God put her here to be, but also balancing that with being a mother and a wife, and feeling guilty about making sacrifices and being torn. But she chooses to be here to do her work, and then she goes home, and then she's with her family, and she's with them. And that's okay. But she was talking about that thing that I was feeling when I left my daughter at school that day. That guilt of my passion saying to be here, but then my heart saying, don't leave your child. But I'm doing this for her, right? So when the event was over, I went up to her and I said, I just want to tell you thank you for, you know, for being so transparent, for being so honest. And I said, you're amazing. I don't know much about you, but, so we talked, and she asked me what I did, and I mentioned to her about Tiger Lily. And she said she wanted me to come and talk with her. And so I'm thinking, what does this powerful woman want to talk to me about? And so her staff contacted me and said she wants to meet with you. And so I said, well, I'll come, but my daughter gets, I was working at the time, full-time job. I don't leave work till 5 o'clock. I can't be in DC till whatever time. And she said, the Congresswoman said, whenever you get here, she'll be here. She'll wait for you. She'll be here. Just come. And so they were calling me, are you close? And then we had to park and then get in, you know, into the building. I get in there, Noelle's younger. She's jumping around, answering their phones, and I'm humiliated. But so we sat down to talk, Debbie and I began telling her about, because I was thinking, what does she want with me? And so I began telling her about Tiger Lily and having had breast cancer and what I was doing, you know, our mission and purpose and programs. And she's like, you don't have to convince me to do anything. I have had breast cancer for the past, you know, year or whatever. And I think she's had upwards of 9 surgeries in 1 year. But she was focused on her work in the election and didn't want to distract, and she just didn't tell anybody. But she went through all this while working and raising her kids, and she was on task with her work.
Wow. And
she said, I want to do something different than what's being done and make something unique. And I love that you're helping women with breast cancer under 45. And how can I help? And so we just brainstormed, and she goes, I think I'm going to create a bill. And I was like, a bill? Really? She goes, yeah, I'm going to create something that can help women of this demographic on a larger scale. Because when you create policy changes everything. And I said, you have to get people socialized to the idea, and you have to do media campaigns. And she goes, no, we can just get people into our room and discuss it, but then we can discuss how to make this into law. And I said, really? You can do that? She goes, yes, I do that every day. And so we just discussed some things, and then she called together a room of all these amazing, powerful advocates in the breast cancer community, and everyone talked about what they were doing, what their thoughts were, and then this bill was drafted that got passed, which was called the Breast Cancer Early Act.
And you do this every year?
Well, the Early Act is what made the event happen.
I mean, yeah.
So the Early Act early stands for education and awareness, requires learning young. And so, which is what Tiger Lily and other groups as well do. So, but there are very few of us that do this work for women who are under 45. So the bill was passed with the health reform bill in 2010. So the bill was actually passed in 2009, but it came law in, it was introduced in 2009, passed in 2010, and we had our first Breast Cancer Day on the Hill. And that was a way to launch the work of the bill. We got other people in the room who were doing similar work and discussing what the work was going to be doing. But now it's been 4 years, and the bill has been reauthorized with funding.
Wow.
And the things that have happened in the past 4 years are incredible.
Wow.
Because she got appropriations for funding, and so we're able to get funding to groups that are helping women under 45. We're able to get campaigns done with the CDC. So many things are different, but people are getting educated, aware, they're surviving, they're getting tools and resources. And so the event's bringing together a collaborative group of people who are all advocates for the cause. We're going to discuss what we're all doing that are unique and different. But we have one common goal, is to help ensure that women who are under 45 have what they need to survive, have the resources, have the tools, and have empowerment and support before, during, and after breast cancer.
Wow. And we are running out of time, but if you could just let people know where they can go and get details about next Wednesday and how they can be supportive of your efforts.
So our website is www.tigerlilyfoundation.org, and on the home page is the link to the event page. The event is free. We welcome donations, however. And it's going to be a luncheon and a panel discussion. It's going to be very powerful. So.
And and I mentioned to you that, because I try to be as supportive as I can
and you
with
are.
things that you're doing. Well, we're both very, very busy women,
people,
but I try as much as I can. And I happen to be speaking at an event on that day, but I'm going to try my darndest to make sure that I show up at least for a portion of it, because I support the work that you're doing.
Thank you, Bonnie.
It's very near and dear to my heart, because as I mentioned to you, all of the women in my husband's family have succumbed to the disease because of the gene, and so it's very, very important that we find not only support the women who are going through it, but find a cure as well. So, Maimah, this has been so much fun.
It was wonderful fun.
I always love when you come and light up.
I feel so well fed when I leave your presence.
Oh my gosh, I feel the same about you, my dear.
Thank you.
It's a mutual kind of thing, and I'm going to look forward to you being a part of the I See You campaign that we're doing this year for Women Are Talking.
You have my commitment. I'll be a part of it.
Perfect, perfect. And you'll learn more about that as we go, probably on our next show. But we've run out of time, and as usual, I am so pleased that I know you could have been any place, but you chose to spend your time with us here at Metro Magazine, and I appreciate you for that. So until next week, the same time, same place, that's going to wrap it up for us. So I will see you on the flip side. Have a great week.